Just got back from vacation. I'm not sure I'm going to any soirees. Got a lot of work to do. Went down to Norfolk, Virginia, and hopped on my friend's boat, and then we took it all the way up to New York City. Everybody make sure got your microphones on. All right, good evening, everyone. I would like to call the June 5th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Cicero Zoning Board of Appeals to order. Ms. Robeson, please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia,
Here.
Mr. Daniel,
Here.
Mr. Vick,
Here.
Mr. Mays.
Here.
Mr. Stanton.
Here. Please take note of the fire exits located in the front and the rear of this room. At this time, please silence all cell phones and pagers. Please note that tonight's meeting is being simulcast on YouTube. It is also being recorded. At this time, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Has everyone read the minutes of the May 1st, 2023 meeting?
Yes.
Does anyone have any corrections? There being no corrections, do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the May 1st, 2023 minutes.
Do I have
I'll second.
Very good. When you're ready, please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia.
Yes, the motion.
Mr. Daniel,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Vick,
I have to abstain. I was not here.
Mr. Mays.
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes to the motion. Cicero Town Board acknowledges the importance of full public participation at all public meetings, and therefore we urge all who wish to address those in attendance to please come to the microphone located in the front of the room. At this time, I will make a motion that all actions taken tonight are type 2 actions and have a negative impact that is no impact on the environment unless otherwise indicated. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Robeson, please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia,
Yes, the motion.
Mr. Daniel,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Vick,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Mays.
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes to the motion. We have proof that all items on tonight's agenda have been advertised as directed by law. I will briefly review the process for tonight's meeting for the benefit of those present that have never been before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Each applicant will have an opportunity to describe their project. The board will then ask questions about the project. I will then open a public hearing where people will be able to speak for or against the proposed variance. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to respond to public input and provide additional information. Following that, board members will be allowed to ask follow-on questions. The board will openly discuss amongst ourselves the 5 factors that contribute to the final decision. Please note this board does not have a pre-agenda meeting, so there is no prior discussion of cases outside of this meeting. And finally, a motion will be made either approving or denying the requested variance, seconded and voted upon. So our first case tonight is an application for a property on 207 Stone Arabia Road. The applicant is Zankar Vakil. You wouldn't mind coming up and address the board?
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
So we just bought this home last year. It's a very beautiful home. It's a pleasure to live in Cicero. So what we want to do is we want to put a fence. And since this property is in a corner lot, what I was told is like the front of the property and as well as the side of the property is treated as a front yard, and I can extend beyond a little bit. So as I've indicated in the maps that I've provided, I have about 30 feet of property towards Parker House Road. And then there is another 17 feet of property, which is for the easement. What I would like to do is I would like to mostly get into like 16 feet and just to construct a privacy fence around it. The reason for this fence is I got 2 daughters. Both of them are autistic. I need a protected area for them to play into. They tend to wander off if we leave them. So right now we don't actually even use the yard as much. We have fenced in the patio that we have, and that's the only place where they get to play. But if I do that, I can use that area much more effectively as their play area. Long term, put like a swing set, a temporary pool to just teach them water safety and whatnot. So having this a little more area would definitely help. So that's the reason. Things that I looked into was I'm just going almost to the back of the house. So I wanted to make sure when I do this fence, when the cars are passing by, since this is a corner lot, there's no line of sight issues. If you guys want, I have taken some pictures as to how it would look. But I don't see an issue. I drove by there, stopped there a few times just to make sure I can see the oncoming traffic. And then I still have like 14 feet of property from my area. Plus there's another 17 feet of property, which leaves like ample room for easement issues that could come. So yeah, that's the whole thing.
What are the details on the fence you want to put up? How tall?
It's a 6 feet, 6 feet vinyl fence.
The fence is not going to extend past the rear line of the house, from what I can determine on the plans.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's going to be. It's just that there is like a drainage pipe. They might just have to do accommodation. So maybe an inch or two here and there just to accommodate that the drainage pipe.
Right, right.
The gutter pipe. That's all they'll have to do. But yeah, not beyond the
Yeah.
lot.
How did you arrive at the 16 feet projection past the house?
So typically what they told me is each panel is about 8 feet.
Okay.
So we added like 2 panels. And I wanted to make sure I just don't go too further. That's why I didn't want to go like 24 or 32 for that matter. So I thought like 16 was a good deal where I could still get like a lot more area in the yard.
What if we said one?
Was that?
What if we said one panel, 8 feet?
I would still appreciate if you could give me.
Understand? Could you live with one?
It still gives me more area. So, but if you could give me 2, I would really appreciate it, because that way, like, it's halfway between what I own in terms of the land, and at the same time, like,
Yeah, but as you mentioned, corner lots are unique, right? So you basically have 2 front yards.
yeah.
I think where Mr. Robbie is going with that is that we're charged with approving the minimum variance required. And he's looking for, some kind of options here
Yeah.
as opposed to just, what you ask for.
Mhm.
I think Paul's right. The detriment to a corner lot is you have double the easement issues,
Right.
as opposed to if it's a commercial property, you have double the exposure.
Yeah, and this is mostly like a inside road. So if you look at the traffic density, it's not like, there is very minimal traffic density because it's mostly the residential people that drive around.
Steve, historically, what have you done with scenarios like this with the corner lots?
What have I
Has there
done?
been historically, or what is
They
the
got to come
zoning
for a
board?
variance.
Yeah.
It's us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's a special.
If I remember correctly,
situation.
we did one of these very
did.
similar to this a couple months
We
ago.
do them all the time.
Yeah.
We do them all the time.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah, this comes in front of us a lot. And the one thing that I'll note with the varying quality of surveys that we get, just in case people are noticing this, the street line here is actually that's the right of way line. There's another 15 or 16
Correct.
feet past
No,
that, so
correct,
it's
correct.
asphalt.
Yeah, I saw that. The other thing is you're creating a very interesting situation on the west side. You're going to run a fence and you're only going to have maybe a foot between your neighbor's fence. Is that right?
No, it's going to be close to 3 foot.
3 foot?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted that area to
To
be
do maintenance?
accessible.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, for like, I kind of looked at the lawnmowers and stuff, and if I leave about 3 feet, that should be easy to kind of maintain it properly.
It kind of leaves the existing fence in
violation of the setback or the existing shed?
It looks like well, no, the shed is okay.
Shed looks like it's.
Shed is
fine.
just from property boundaries, no distance required from the
Okay.
fence.
Okay.
The neighbor's fence is.
It's like a
over
neighbor's
the-
fence. is on
over
his
the-
property.
Yeah, so we actually looked at it. He's like a few inches in my property. I'm still leaving a good 3 feet from where he is.
Even all the way down to southern end of your property, that's 3 feet. This is not to scale, so it's hard for. me
Yeah,
to-
this is, yeah, but then the whole idea is, we should be able to maintain both the fences and
Okay.
I wanted, like, everywhere, I looked at, I wanted, area around my fence so that I have the right of access. So none of the fence boundaries that I've drawn are like right to the edge of what I own. They're well within the property that I have so that I can access it from the backside or outside as well.
Any other questions at this point? Okay.
Nope.
So with that, at this time, I will open the public hearing. Would anyone speak for this? Would anyone speak against this? At this time, I will close the public hearing. Does the board have any other questions?
I mean, I drove it a couple different ways over the weekend. I didn't get out and measure it, but I looked at it, there's a decent amount of land in between where I think the fence is gonna be and the street line. It's just pretty significant over that side building line, it's basically halfway.
Yeah,
I don't know, what do you guys think? I'd be more comfortable with less, but
Yeah.
I get it.
I think 8 feet is reasonable, 16 feet on the edge of reasonable.
Is there gonna be a gate facing north?
Yes, yes.
I mean, I feel like we're being flexible on the opacity and the height of the fence, right? I mean, we're gonna allow 6 feet and,
Yeah, completely opaque.
get completely opaque.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Going on the 8.
yeah, I'm okay with that also.
Yeah.
So what's being proposed here is that as we go ahead, as I described in the beginning, we'll go through the 5 factors. And it sounds like when a motion's being made, the motion will be in regards to 8 feet from your house as opposed to 16, just one fence panel. That's what I'm hearing.
That's what we're talking about, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
And again, I think I'm okay with the 6-foot fence and the completely opaque. I get that.
All right. I just wanted to make sure Mr. Fakil understood what was going on up here.
Now, we just gotta be careful. We can't say, I guess we gotta make the motion properly, right? We can't say from the building line, right? Because it's not quite 8 feet from the building line, right?
Yeah, it's 8, so building line is about 1.5 feet.
Yeah,
From where the house edge is, and I'm just asking like 16 feet from the edge of the house. So
yeah.
it's
No,
actually
I just think from a motion perspective for us, we just gotta say probably from the edge of the house. Chuck, do you think?
I think,
Because mine's not to scale, so I can't
Fine.
scale this.
I mean, if I'm looking at this correctly, the house is square with the property line. It's 31.5 feet. You could do 8 feet less the 1.5 feet.
Is that a 5 or a 3? Is that a 5? I can't see anything.
Yeah.
Is it a 5?
Yeah, I think it's a 5.
Okay.
31.5.
Yep, got it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I have the benefit of the PDF that you can actually
Yeah.
zoom in on and see what's.
I didn't bring my
going on.
readers with me tonight. Okay, so we can do the math and get it that way then, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'd prefer to do it that way if we're gonna head that way.
What's the dimension? Do you know?
It should be 6.5, 6.5,
Yeah.
7.5, 8. Yep.
6.5.
So with that, does anyone want to cover the 5 factors and then make a motion?
Not sure what will come.
They want a shot at it or?
Go ahead. Unless anybody else wants to. Of course, I'll take it. It's not a
No,
problem.
okay, that's fine. Before I make a motion for Zankar Vakil at 6207 Stone Arabia Path, I would like to review the 5 factors for reviewing an area variance. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created. I believe the answer to that question is no. I think even made more strongly no by the fact that, we're only going to project out 8 feet from the house or 6.5 feet from the eastern building line.
Well, let me clarify.
I'm sorry.
Because I don't think he's agreed with that.
Oh, okay.
If he hasn't, I'm sorry. If he hasn't, then you should be doing the 5 factors based on the application.
Okay. I'm sorry. So I thought Chuck got the agreement. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, I don't,
You want to review
Well-
it again?
Yeah, is there no way you can do 16, please?
I think as Chuck mentioned, we're trying to approve the most minimum tolerable variance for us. So we've all arrived at 8.
Mm. Okay, let's do 8 then. I mean, I would have really loved it to be 16. It's like still halfway through my property. So if you guys could reconsider, I really appreciate that. And it's not coming anywhere beyond beyond the line of the house, backside of the house. So that still leaves like a lot of area in the front.
I can make a motion at 16, but it might not pass.
So what happens if it doesn't pass?
you would have to then come back with it's denied, you wouldn't be able to build, so you would have to come back with a different request, which is probably either going to be the 8 feet or 24 feet. That's if you're going by panels, that's the only other 2 options that you would have.
If you're gonna have a gate on the north side of the fence, aren't you gonna have to cut the 8-foot panel anyways?
So they go like this, and then they have adjusted it when they go. They have the gate opens towards the Parker house, so the way they adjusted it, they.
Oh, okay, so it's on the east, it's on the east side. Of
Yeah,
the-
yeah.
Okay. if
Oh,
the
my
gate
my
is
bad.
east.
Yeah. So they have adjusted it so that it's like falls right into that whole thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Mark. I'm more comfortable with 8, especially it being a 6-foot high, 100% opaque fence. I'm more comfortable with an 8-foot.
I mean, to Terry's point, I can make a motion however we want. I mean, if you're okay with 8, I'm gonna do 8. If
Okay.
you want to do 16, I'll do 16.
Let's go with 8 then.
Okay. Okay, forgot what I said. Whether undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties would be created. I believe the answer to that is no. And again, the applicant's willingness to work with us to approve the minimum amount of variance certainly makes that even more of a no.
Mr. Daniels,
Agreed.
Mr. Beck,
Agree.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Stanton.
Agreed.
Whether the applicant can achieve his goals via a reasonable alternative, which does not involve the necessity of an area variance, I think the applicant could, but I think given the situation he laid out, looking for a 6-foot tall fence, 100% opacity, or maybe I get the reverse of that or whatever, but, and trying to do a little bit of a maximization of his yard, while the answer is likely yes, I get where he's trying to go.
Mr. Daniel,
Agreed.
Mr. Beck,
Agree.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Stanton.
Agreed.
Well, the area variance is substantial. I think, going from 4 feet tall to 50% opacity to, 6 feet tall and, can't see through it. And, what, a third of the way into the setback, it's again, it's substantial. But as we consider these things, I believe, the situation as he's laid out and what we've agreed to, makes it tolerable.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Beck,
Agree.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Stanton.
Agreed.
Whether variance will have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, I drove it several different ways. From a safety perspective, I don't think anything's that, I don't think there's anything there. And then from a drainage issue, there's probably no issue there either. So I don't think there's any issue.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Beck,
Agree.
Mr. Mays.
Agree.
Mr. Stanton.
I agree.
And then finally, whether there's been any self-created difficulty, I think, the answer to that naturally is yes, but that, again, that's not a reason to deny the variance given the situations we've discussed.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Beck,
Agree.
Mr. Mays,
Agree.
Mr. Stanton.
Agreed.
Okay, with that, I'll make a motion for Zankar Vakil, 6207 Stone Arabia Path for an area variance where the proposed front yard fence is 6 feet high and completely opaque. And extends 6.5 feet from the eastern building line. God, I can speak tonight. I think I got it right. Yeah, I think that's it, right? The 6 foot fence, completely opaque, and extends no more than 6.5 feet into the past the easterly building line.
You got it. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia.
Yes, to the motion.
Mr. Daniel,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Beck,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Mays.
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes to the motion. Congratulations, the motion passed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome. And I'll apologize in advance if I mangle the name. Usually I don't. I have a feeling I might tonight. So our second case tonight is an application for a property at 8168 Cicero Mills Road. The applicant is Matthew Medea. Media. Okay, I didn't quite mangle it. Wouldn't mind coming up and addressing the board, please.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, my name is Matthew Media. I live at 8168 Cicero Mills Road, Cicero. My wife and I moved into our home, be 2 years this coming August. And in the fall of 21, I had installed a 10 by 12 storage shed, a tough shed through Home Depot. And I had J&R Property landscapers lay down stone gravel foundation. And I received a building permit from the town of Cicero before it was built. And I was told the structure has to be 10 feet from the side property line. I wrote that on my land survey, showed it to the J&R Property associate. I said, this has to abide by 10 feet from the side property to adhere with your rule. And they said, not a problem, we'll take care of it. And me being a rookie homeowner, I simply trusted his judgment. And they laid down the foundation. The storage shed was put down by the tough shed employees from Home Depot. And then I had a code officer come out just to make sure everything was up to code and par. And he told me it's actually 6 feet from the side property line, not 10. I didn't know that. I never measured it. I simply trusted their judgment. I didn't want to be out there condescendingly measuring as they're doing it. So, and so he said the only way you can do this is either you spend more money to lay down more foundation and move the shed another 4 feet to comply, or you apply for a 4-foot variance exception. And I'm here this evening asking if I can have a 4-foot variance exception, please.
So I'm going to ask the question that might be on some of the other board members' minds. Did you ever go back to any of the people who were involved in the construction of this and approach them with this situation?
I did talk to the manager of J&R, and he acknowledged that they dropped the ball as far as communication. And he said he asked me to continue to go ahead with the variance, hopefully get it granted. He goes, if for some reason you cannot, he goes, we'll talk further. But in the end, it's going to cost me more money to have more stone foundation laid and to have the shed moved. So
looking at this is the one that you gave to J&R,
yes,
is that correct? It's also, looks like the shed is also turned 90 degrees from what is showing on your current survey. Is that accurate?
Or 90 degrees.
Yeah, so like your 12-foot side
Mhm,
on your actual survey here faces your home,
mhm.
and on the one that you gave them, the 12-foot side faces the opposite direction, so it would face west.
Perhaps, I'm not really sure.
I could explain 2 of the feet.
Right.
Yes.
And it also, not to nitpick, but it also is on your, the one that is just, I'm assuming that's your writing. Says 10 inches from side property line, not 10 feet.
That's supposed to be 10 feet.
Yeah.
They knew it was, I
They
told
knew.
them 10
Yeah,
feet.
I
so
kind of assumed.
My apologies on that.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so I mean, did they acknowledge in any way that they would be willing to move it 4 feet if that were?
He told me that it would take some negotiating.
So the only reason I ask is because looking at like an overhead view of your home, there's really nothing stopping you from moving it 4 feet. Like you don't have, it's not like you have a tree there or a swimming pool there or something else. Like there's really no reason to not move it to 4 feet is what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
So if they were willing to do that, which I mean, if they acknowledge that they dropped the ball as a business owner, that's what I would do personally, but I think that's what I would personally rather see. I don't know. I can't speak for them up here, but
And I think in similar situations that we've run into like this, I remember one in particular where there were substantial concrete foundations involved, that was somewhat of a mitigating factor. But if we're talking about a tough shed, which is a shed on grade essentially, and a gravel pad, that's a little bit more amenable to jockeying around as opposed to a more fixed structure.
Yeah, I would think that this would be a business decision between you and the installers of the shed, not necessarily a zoning issue, at least from my perspective.
Who's your neighbor? Who's the neighbor with the wood fence? Is that Yellen?
Yes.
Okay. No issues?
What, sir, we'll get to a point where we do public input, and then I would definitely appreciate you coming up and talking about that. Otherwise, we can't capture it. Thank you.
And then which one of your neighbors is behind you? Are they on this list here?
The signature list? No, they're not. No.
Okay.
I tried to obtain their signature. No one was home.
Okay.
And one other point I'd like to add, I mean, again, the pricing of materials and building, let's face it, it's at an all-time high. For a simple 10 by 12 shed and with the landscape and the gravel stone laid down, this cost me about $9,000. So it would cost me at least another $2,000-3,000 more just to move it. So nothing worse than when you're paying it and then people don't listen. So
But you feel J&R is responsible though, right?
they lay down the foundation, yes.
Yeah,
Any-
I
go
would
ahead.
agree. It's between the property owner and J&R, not the zoning board to modify.
And we can talk a little bit about that in a bit, but are there any other questions?
When did the shed go in?
Fall of 21.
Oh, okay.
That's why it showed up on the aerials with Google. It's been there for a while. All right, so with that, at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Would anyone speak for this? If you wouldn't mind stating your name and your address.
Well, my name is Michael Yellen, live at 8162 Cicero Mills Road for the past 31 years. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with this gentleman's shed where it is. It is not in my way whatsoever. and I'm going to stick my nose into it. The people behind him, they're nowhere near their property either. As I said, I've been there 31 years. I'm familiar with the neighborhood, familiar with everybody that lives there. There's no problem whatsoever, other than the mistake made by J&R Landscaping, who is a customer of the company that I work for. So I'm quite familiar with their company and the mistakes and the good things that they've done.
Great. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Would anyone else speak for this? Would anyone speak against this? At this time, I will close the public hearing. So in my mind, what this comes down to is one of the 5 factors, which is there a feasible alternative? Which in this case, I think there is a recourse to go back to the landscaping company that made the original mistake and try and get this rectified. That's outside of, I'd rather see the ZBA be the last recourse for issues like this as opposed to using us to not have to negotiate with the person who made the mistake, especially if they admitted that there was a mistake involved with it. How's the board feeling about that?
Yeah, I would agree. I also think in terms of, this is just an idea for you, in terms of material costs, if J&R is going to move the shed 4 feet, they could take the stone that they have underneath it currently and move it with it and add that 4 feet on the other side of it. And then you could just plant put topsoil and grass seed there. Just a thought.
It's unfortunate because it's not a self-created scenario.
Sure, it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
So
I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Go right ahead.
I mean, we've got the neighbor here that's most affected with absolutely zero issue, right? So, and again, I see it both ways, but I mean, the fact that the neighbor made time has no issue. I think it should play into our decision-making process just a little bit, right? I get what you're
Absolutely.
saying,
No.
you know, don't let the ZBA be the first line of defense, but, you know, I think, again, it's pretty clear that the person most impacted by this has no issue.
I
You want-
guess,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say, my concern somewhat relates to precedent, though. That, you know, if we make a decision to bend for an error here, that again, it may be sought after again.
The one benefit that we have is that there is no precedent here. So, I mean, every case has to be treated separately.
Right, yeah.
Just as long as we're not being arbitrary and capricious with the way we're making our decisions.
I get that, but it still could be argued that, well, you did it before, kind of thing. So it doesn't tie.
Oh,
our
it
hands, but-
definitely, that's said,
it's
but I mean,
perception.
yeah, it's said, but you have to view each case on its own, and I
Yep.
think Chuck has said that statement about 100 times.
yeah. Steve, when was this actually inspected? You said
It was recently. it was
Brian
double-
did it. So it was recent. Okay.
Yeah, in an effort to close out open building
Okay.
permits, there was
Yeah.
a number of them. This was one of them.
Sure.
That was picked
Okay.
up in that, during that inspection.
So the only thing I would say in response to you, Mark, is that I agree, and I understand what you're saying, that the person most affected by it, but obviously this does follow the parcel down the road as if somebody were to sell it. Either Mr. Madia, I say your name,
Media.
Madia, or the neighbor.
And then Steve, not to create a larger problem with the neighbors here, but in looking at the aerial, it seemed like there were quite a few sheds that were closer than the 10-foot. At some point, were we allowing 6 feet from the?
You know, I'd have to go back and look at each one of those individually. And I don't, so I don't know which one specifically you're speaking about. This neighborhood is unique in that it's a PUD, a residential PUD, and that side setback was established by the PUD zone change for that subdivision. I guess years ago, it could be possible that others looking at that did not pick up on that, although, you know, the 6-foot side yard setback is for R10 zones. So.
Right.
If they compared the lot dimension to an R10 zone and did that. Going even further back, there was a practice by folks in the zoning office, because we give relief to the rear yard setback under certain square footage, and they discretionarily awarded that to the side yard as well, where that is not, it's not listed that way. You know, in the town zoning ordinance, it's says stick to the side yard setback.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. With that, would someone like to cover the 5 factors? Make a motion?
Do we want, so the plan is to proceed with this and not,
Well, we can proceed one of 2 ways. My preference would be to put forth what was asked for and then vote up or down on it, as opposed to just going out and doing a flat deny. I'd like to at least give a chance for people to have their opinion on it.
Gotcha.
And the chance for it to pass, as opposed to just go straight to denial and have there be no recourse for it, because there is some, at least what I'm seeing is there is some difference of opinion.
Okay.
Or float on the board, so.
I'll review it then, Phil.
All right, great.
All right, so number 1, whether an undesirable change would be producing the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. I would say no. I'm sure there are a lot of sheds in that neighborhood, and like Chuck noted, there's also other ones that appear to be within a similar distance to the fence.
Mr. Rabia,
I agree.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Beck,
Agree.
Mr. Stanton.
I agree.
Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. I would say yes to that. The option would be to go back to the installer and say, hey, you guys made an error here and you need to move the fence 4 feet, or I'm sorry, the shed 4 feet.
Mr. Rabia,
I agree.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Beck,
Agree.
Mr. Stanton.
I agree.
Would the variance have an adverse, I'm sorry, whether the requested variance is substantial? I think that 40% is substantial. Not necessarily the only contributing factor to a decision, but I think it's substantial.
Mr. Rabia,
Yeah, I agree.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr.
Agree.
Beck, Mr. Stanton.
I agree.
Would the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood? No, I don't think it will affect. It's out of your, it looks like you have a drainage easement in the back. It doesn't impact that at all. So I would say no.
Mr. Rabia,
I agree.
Mr. Daniel,
Agree.
Mr. Beck,
Agree.
Mr. Stanton.
I agree.
Number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. I struggle with this one a little bit because I think it was not self-created and that you are not the one that made the mistake. But you're also the one that doesn't want to move it 4 feet. So I will say it is self-created.
Mr. Rabia,
I gotta think about that for a second. Did you say not self-created?
I said it was self-created.
I disagree.
Mr. Daniel,
I agree.
Mr. Beck,
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. People who don't deal with contractors on a regular basis trust that they're getting the project that they're paying for.
Fair point.
In many cases, we know that's not true. And
Mis-
this is one of those cases. Sorry.
Mr. Stanton.
Even with all that, I'll say I agree, but I do want to note that this is not necessarily a reason to deny the variance. That's been a longstanding point of ours.
So with that, I will make a motion on behalf of Matthew Madia.
Yep.
8168 Cicero Mills Road. An area variance to allow for an area variance, I'm sorry, an area variance to allow for a shed to remain that is located 6.1 feet from the side property boundary where the minimum side yard setback distance of 10 feet is required.
I'll second the motion.
All right, with that, please call the roll.
Mr. Rabia,
Before I vote, I just want to say the fact that the neighbor came in and has no problem is really what kind of changed my thinking on this. So I'm going to say yes to the motion.
Mr. Daniel,
No to the motion.
Mr. Beck,
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Mays,
No to the motion.
Mr. Stanton.
You know, one thing here, we could always say buyer beware and go on our happy way and go home. But in this specific case, considering the neighbor doesn't have an issue, I'm going to say yes to the motion. Motion carried. Congratulations.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So with that. I love it. Yeah, drama. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday.
That 12? No, what is that? That's
No,
10?
It's on-
Monday, July 10th.
Yeah, it's after the holiday. Yep.
Is there any other business before the board? There being no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We get blankets
Second.
tonight.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. See everybody next month.
Good work.
Yeah.
I know.
That was awesome.
Where was the second on that? Adjourn was you and who's the second? I didn't. Okay, thank you.
See you soon.